Good morning. Welcome back to another week on my allotment. And things are changing. I looked at a video this week that I posted on the 17th of May last year. And of course we were in the first lockdown then, so my daughter was living with us at the time while lockdown was on, and every Saturday we made a rule of going for a really good long walk, and I posted some clips of each of those walks on my videos. And on the 17th of May I did a clip as we walked back into our front garden, and all my roses were in absolute beautiful form. All the flowers were open, they looked their best. Well, I think today is the 29th of May and I don't have a single rose flower out yet. They're all in bud and they all look fine, but they're not out yet. And that's just one of many indicators, and I'm sure you're very aware of this, that this year, for a number of reasons, I think most notably April and the cold frosty nights, everything is behind. And if I start off with the bad news, I mean, it's all relative. I have not been able to germinate butternut squashes this year. For some strange reason, I tried with the first packet of butternuts that I got from my DT Brown delivery, and one germinated out of the packet. I think there was 15 seeds in the packet, so I have 1 out of 15. I then had an extra packet somewhere in my seed box and I tried them, and not a single one of those germinated. I saved some seed from my own butternuts last year. They're in pots in the greenhouse. They haven't germinated. I also got a free packet of winter butternut squash called mashed potato. So I thought, oh, that would be nice, I'll try that. I think I mentioned it. No, not a single one germinated. And I was so determined to grow mashed potato butternuts that I sent off for another 2 packets. And I've sown 1 packet, that was about 2 weeks ago. No, nothing, not a single one. So, I mean, what's that? That's out of about 30 to 40 seeds. I've got, currently as we speak, or as I speak, I've got 1 butternut squash plant, and that's it. Which for us is a sort of a disaster as far as allotments go, because we consume a lot of butternuts in the winter in the form of soups. I mean, I've got a lot of leeks, so we're not going to go short of soup. But anyway, I'd be very interested, for those of you who've got allotments or kitchen gardens, is it me? I mean, I've told you before, I do say that a lot. What's going on with, and, you sow them on their sides and give them a good drink, but don't flood them and all. I've researched and looked at, maybe, because the first place to start is with yourself, obviously. But I've never had problems germinating. Anyway, that's enough of that. So that's the bad news. The good news is, initially I had the same problem with pumpkins, but I've now resolved that, and I think I was just trying to go too early. I've got quite a few pumpkin plants coming on. I've sown another load. Now I grow pumpkins on this plot simply because it's part of the contract with the farm shop. We have to provide 6 pumpkins per plot, and I've got 2. So I provide 6 each year to the farm shop. But the ones I've had over, I've given away to friends and family. But I think what I'll do this year is, if I manage to grow excess, we will use those in lieu of butternuts. Which I think, I know you can make pumpkin soup. So I say Cheryl will have to learn how to make, get a recipe off the internet. It takes seconds, and we'll have a go at it and we'll use them. So, there's always another option. There's always a plan B, C and D. So anyway, welcome along to the plot for another week. I should say thank you to those people who regularly comment. It's like a little online family. I get regular comments from regular people. Other people sort of come in for a month or two and then drop off the scene, and I do the same with other allotments. But to those that have been with me through thick and thin, you are very much appreciated. So what's new on the plot? Well, first things first. There's an odd phrase, isn't it? First things first. I have some sunflowers. Cheryl doesn't like sunflowers. I mean, for goodness sake, who doesn't like sunflowers? I've had a word with her. But she won't have them in the garden, and she overrules me, quite rightly, so they've had to come up here. And I'm aware that I've had slug problems in the past when I plant them, so I'm trying my best to be patient. I'm keeping them on the chippings path, because the slugs don't venture onto that often. And I'll let them grow on a bit, and when they really are of a good size, then I'll plant them somewhere, I don't know where. But while we're here, I tell you now, you won't see that very often. The flag is not moving. That is so rare. Well, that's 5 pumpkin plants that are just about ready to go, and I've done it before, but I'm going to do it again this year. I'm going to grow them through weed suppressant membrane, which hopefully should, well, it will suppress the weeds, as the name suggests, and allow the pumpkins to gain the water unchallenged. I do wonder if, because I know pumpkins re-root, which is how Bridget managed to win the giant pumpkin competition, because she gave over a lot of land to it and it was able to put down new roots and gain more goodness and nutrients. So, but anyway, that's how I'm doing it, and we'll watch the progress through the summer, he says, as it's raining and overcast again. I mentioned some of the comments that I get and the people who do it, and one such comment was a really good idea about the stinging nettle tea, of which there'll be more later, and said about putting a sprig of mint in to give it a bit of taste. And I thought, stroke of genius. That's the thing, the best ideas are the simplest. So we've got a bit of mint in pots at home, and I was trying to grow radishes in this old tin bucket, but they weren't coming to much. So I'm going to try some mint and add that to my nettle tea. So thanks for that comment, good idea. Another development, I've managed to grow, I had 5 seeds in a packet and 3 germinated of the tromboncini, I'm not sure if I've pronounced that right, tromboncini courgettes, which are rather comical, long looking things. Always reminds me of Carry On films when I see it. Ooh, matron. Sorry. So, yeah, 2 of them have gone in on this arch, and the old upturned plastic bottle watering trick is being deployed, and we'll see how they get on. I did mention about that seed sowing compost I had that I don't rate. What I've done is I've mixed it in with some general purpose to bulk it up and to use it up. But this nearest row are the peas that I sowed in that said compost. So it's a rather meagre, pathetic affair. However, I'm not short of peas. Next year, instead of the 2 packets of alderman, I'm going to order 3. And I won't be using that compost again. But anyway, all 4 rows, as much as that last one is, are now in. And as you can see over there, they're romping away. So yeah, very happy. I reckon I might have peas in about a month's time. Many years ago, I was an instructor at the Defence Diving School, and I had a wonderful time. It's a wonderful and fulfilling thing to do any kind of teaching in any situation. Personally, I revelled in the military environment. I hated school. I anyway, doesn't matter. I hated school. I enjoyed the sport, I enjoyed all the outdoor stuff, but I wasn't academic. No shocks there, I know. Anyway, all I ever wanted to do was be a soldier. I don't remember thinking of anything else. And when it came time in the school years to develop a careers folder, we had to do, all I had was pictures of tanks and soldiers and guns and my very academic, in fact the headmaster was a doctor, doctor of what, I have no idea, don't care, didn't at the time, didn't like the man. And he spoke to me and he said, Jordan, if you're going into the military, that is a waste of an excellent education. So I went ahead, and all my adult life I've wasted that education, and I've had a fantastic life. But yeah, I revelled in the military. I just found the discipline and the desire to excel and the acceptance of nothing but the highest standards was the environment I loved. Anyway, I'm rambling. The reason I mentioned that I was at the Defence Diving School, it was the first stint I did as a staff sergeant, actually on the coalface doing the teaching, which I loved, taking a man who could barely swim and 8 weeks later pushing out a qualified combat diver was fantastic, or Royal Engineer diver. Anyway, the second stint I did is when I became an officer, and that was a little bit more administrative based, but nevertheless just as rewarding. Anyway, the Defence Diving School is led by the Royal Navy. The Navy are the lead on all matters diving. And so very, very occasionally there would be a dinner, and you'd go along in your best mess dress with your medals on, and you'd have a lovely evening with the Royal Navy and the Army, taking the mick out of each other to a great extent. Anyway, we went to one very formal dinner. I think he was an admiral, I think. I hope I haven't told this story before. As I get older I forget things, you know how it goes. Anyway, this admiral had to stand up and give a speech, and as you'd expect from a man of that stature, it was an enthralling speech and full of good humour and wonderful stories. And one of the stories he told, which sort of stuck with me through the years, and every time I have a brew I think of it, as he got up through the ranks and he became the captain of his own ship, he got a steward who, as the name suggests, did all the sort of routine, mundane stuff that allowed the man to concentrate on running a modern Royal Navy ship. And this steward, every morning the captain would go up onto the bridge of the ship to find out what had gone on during the night from the officers of the watch. And at the same time the steward would be down in the bows of the ship in the galley, making him a cup of tea in his own personal bone china cup and saucer. Pardon me. And, first light, when the captain went up onto the bridge, this guy would get this cup of tea and he'd have to come up, very often on some ships, he'd have to come up the outside in all weathers with the ship crashing and tossing and all the rest of it. But he would always arrive at the bridge and hand over to his captain a cup of piping hot, full to the top, cup of best tea. Anyway, this steward was with him for 10 years. And when they finally had to part, he said to this steward, how is it that with all that movement and rocking and throwing about, and the steps on a ship are very, very vertical, how did you ever manage to get that cup of tea, both hot and full, onto the bridge every morning? I'm fascinated by it. And the man said, oh, sir, it's very simple. I'd fill up the cup and saucer with your tea, and just before I left the galley I would, and then before I walked into the bridge I'd go, there you are, sir. Oh, fantastic. 10 years of having that cup of tea and he found out. I think that's wonderful. And apparently they're still the best of friends. Anyway, I thought that was quite humorous. And again, I know I've gone early with the outdoor tomato plants. These are Mountain Magic. But it was just a case of there's not enough room in the greenhouse. As the tomato plants grow, they have to be potted on into bigger pots, which takes up more room. And I simply haven't got the space in the greenhouse. And although this morning it's only about 12 degrees and it's drizzling a bit, this bank holiday weekend is allegedly going to be a hot one. So, and then I looked at the temperatures next week and they're all up about 20 degrees. So I hope these survive. But it sort of forced my hand. Anyway, they're in. Mountain Magic. And if I just pan you across, that is the third and final Tromboncini courgette. I was planning to grow butternuts up that frame and see how they do vertically, but as mentioned, I don't have any. Well, let's have a look at the stinging nettle fertilizer. Oh yeah. Oh, if you could smell that. Oh, lovely. I don't know what people are on about. It's a lovely smell. I think oh, excuse me, I'm gonna gag. I think something's crawled in there and died. It's bloody awful. Anyway, it's going to come in along. I spent a happy hour bent over at my poor old age, hand weeding round these onions, but it was time well spent. They look a lot better for it. I have another hour's worth of work today. Old Deep Joy, these need doing as well. Right, this garlic is called Marco. I've grown it before. It's a hardneck variety, I think. And I noticed these the other day and I did a little bit of research, and of course, you know, if you're an experienced gardener, you'll know this, that these are garlic scapes. And there's a plethora of videos on YouTube of what to do with them and so on. But what I've learned is that these are basically the flower stems of the garlic plant, and that from that point there, that will develop a flower. And the best thing to do is to cut this out while it's still young and tender, because if you let it grow and flower, it will drain the goodness and the energy from the plant that you want put into the bulb. So that's got to come off, all of these. They've all developed it. They've also got a bit of rust on, but my experience is that doesn't tend to matter too much, and you know, they're well spaced, so be it. But yeah, these scapes are coming off, and you know, again, you can do like I did. You can look online and there's all sorts of recipes. People say that they put them in a pan with some olive oil, some salt and pepper, and just fry them up a little bit till they're crunchy, and they taste very good. I might take some of these. Cheryl's coming up here. We're having lunch here today. I might speak to her about that and see if I can get permission for her to do something with them. I'll let you know how that goes. Excuse me while I get up off my knees. Oh. Ooh, I'm not getting any younger. Cool. Wow, I don't have to chuck up a smell. Yeah, fantastic. Anyway, I haven't cut them all off. I'm gonna treat these as a crop. So I don't want to chop them all off yet. Some of them are still a little bit immature and very small, so I'll let them develop a bit, and then we can have them with another meal another time. So yeah, garlic scapes. Don't think I've come across them before. Yeah. Well, as the flag behind me finally gets a little bit of flutter, I wanted to mention a little bit more about stinging nettles. One of the things, as you know, you'll be aware of YouTube, is that once you start looking up something, YouTube detects that and sends you more. So of course, because I looked up nettle fertilizer and nettle tea and so on, I've been getting a few other suggestions, and I've had a look at them, and it's fascinating. And one of my subscribers, Joseph, sent a fascinating reply on my last video, talking about stinging nettles and docks and the symbiotic nature of plants and so on. And I couldn't agree more with what he wrote. It is a fascinating subject. He commented that weeds are often more fascinating than the cultivated plants, and that is so true. And I think it's a piece of knowledge that generally as a society we've lost, and we are the lesser for it. The cures for most things are in the plants around us, and weeds especially. Anyway, going on with what I said, I found out some more fascinating facts about stinging nettles, and I'd like to share them with you, whether you like it or not. Of course, we all know they're great for butterflies. The peacock and red admiral particularly like to lay their eggs on nettles. Stinging nettles help the Romans keep warm. The nettle's sting is a counter-irritant, and so what they would do is they would get a handful of stinging nettles and they'd stroke them across their arms and legs, and that sting that we're all familiar with would warm their limbs and help keep them warm against what they found to be a very difficult and challenging environment in the British Isles. That's fascinating. We were a tougher species back then. If you're like me, thinking of that and thinking, what a horrific way to try and keep warm. They were just tougher than we are now. Stinging nettles have been used for centuries to make cloth. I remember watching a fascinating episode of Ray Mears' programme, The Survivalist, who made cordage and string out of stinging nettles. And I watched it last night and I thought, I've got enough around me, I'm going to give that a go. And you can make rope by twining it, but just the single strands of the inner part of it's the outer part of the main stem. He says, you can use it as twine to tie up your plants. What a wonderful idea, because of course it just rots down with the plant in the compost heap. Fantastic. Used to make cloth. The Scottish poet Thomas Campbell wrote about sleeping on nettle sheets and eating off a nettle tablecloth. Unbelievable. And today is the 29th of May. Did you know it's Oak Apple Day? No, I didn't either. This Oak Apple Day, it was a children's ritual on the 29th of May, mostly in and around the Derbyshire area. Kids were allowed to sting each other and sting each other's legs unless they were in possession of an oak apple, in which case they were exempt, and that gave them protection. Well, I never did. What a coincidence that I would look that up, and today's the day that ritual used to take place, in years gone by. I've got a feeling in today's bubble wrap world, children would not be allowed to sting each other. But you can try it. I've had a book on my bookshelf, and it's called The Walker's Guide to Outdoor Clues and Signs. It's an absolutely fascinating book, and as the name suggests, it gives you the opportunity and explains how to, as you're walking through nature, and my wife and I do a lot of walking on a lot of footpaths and in the national parks, etc., and even just the footpaths around Chepstow. It opens your eyes to all sorts of subtle things that you ordinarily might not see. How to you know, in this part of the world, the prevailing winds are from the west. So when you look up, especially isolated trees on a hilltop, you'll see they're bending a certain way. And of course they're pointing east because the wind from the west forces trees to move that way. And if you see a line of trees, the trees that are more westerly, i.e. facing into the prevailing wind, will be slightly shorter. They've learned to grow slightly shorter to protect themselves, and as you move along the line of trees going more eastwards, so the trees get taller. It's subtle things like that. It's a fascinating book. I've read it a couple of times because I tend to forget things, and I just wanted to, I don't want to overdo the stinging nettle thing, but it's opened my eyes to what a fascinating plant it is. So if you will bear with, I don't know what I've got on these glasses, but I can't see anything out of them. Signs of people. Stinging nettles are easily spotted and recognised. They are very common, but that doesn't mean they will grow anywhere. Stinging nettles only thrive in phosphate-rich places, and human beings have a habit of making places richer in phosphates. The way humans live and die will lead to an area becoming much richer in these minerals, and so stinging nettles are a strong clue to human activity or habitation of some kind. They are particularly common alongside fields that have been fertilised, but away from these they offer more interesting clues. If you have walked for a while without seeing any nettles and suddenly you come across a large proud clump of these weeds, it is worth stopping to investigate. Get in close enough to see the ground, but not so close to sting your nose, and there is a high chance that you can reveal the story of the nettle's success. A ruin of a building, an old burial site, the very first signs of a village that has yet to appear over the brow of a hill. It may be as modest as old Malta, but a cause will be there under the green acid-coated hairs. Well, yes. It just gives you the opportunity to see the world around you in a slightly more detailed way. And yeah, stinging nettles, an indicator of human habitation. Who'd have thought it? Just to show that occasionally men can do two things at once. While I'm boiling the Kelly kettle for my next brew, you must have heard the phrase to be made a laughing stock of. Well, it won't surprise you, I'm sure, to know that that phrase comes from medieval England, when most villages had what were called stocks on the village square. And actually, you know, in our walking around the country, we very often see that those stocks have survived, although unfortunately they're not used anymore, and I think they should be. So petty criminals and hapless individuals who had committed minor crimes would be locked, their arms or their wrists and their ankles would be locked in these stocks and left for a certain period of time, and the village would make a point of coming along and laughing and humiliating this individual, very often pelting them with rotten fruits and vegetables, and those were said to be laughing stocks. Wouldn't that be wonderful to bring that kind of, you know, if some silly teenager was caught committing a minor crime, that they were locked like that and left for a day or two. It wouldn't come to any harm, but it might just... I can't be alone in thinking that that kind of old-fashioned discipline would be a good thing. Oh, Martin, that's terrible. No, I think that's a good idea, to be made a laughing stock of. And I hasten to add, in my youth, I'm sure I'd have ended up in them. Here we go. Brew's up. Still can't believe there's nobody here. I mean, it's 7:25. Right, well that's all the pumpkins I have available in the ground. Another lesson I've learned is if you plant them in the middle, by the time the growth really kicks off in August, September, you cut the leaves are up about 2-3 feet. You can't get to the middle bottles. I'm trying to direct water in a jet, and it doesn't work. So I'm planting them around the edge, and I'm sure the pumpkins will run into the middle and fill that space. But I'll be able to walk around the edge with a watering can and water those quite easily. We'll see. Well, we'll call that a day. And as we sit on the cusp of June, I'm hoping that, you know, tomorrow onwards the temperatures raise, the sunshine comes out. I mean, who knows what this year's weather has got in store. It's certainly been a surprise so far, but I'm hoping that a little bit more warm weather will give some of the more tender crops that I've put in maybe a little early a chance to settle and to grow on. I'm disappointed about the butternut situation, but there's nothing I can do about it. There's plenty of other crops to keep me busy. And maybe I'll have an empty bed because I won't have so many, won't have any butternuts, and I can grow something else. I've got plenty of stuff in the greenhouse coming on, more brassicas, the club resistant type. And next weekend we're celebrating my parents' 60th wedding anniversary, which is a huge deal for the family. Proud of them both. So congratulations to Mum and Dad. We shall be down there over the weekend helping to make it a little bit special, and so I'm not sure when I'll post a video, so you know, whenever it is, I shall see you then. Look after yourselves, take care, be nice to one another, and I shall see you next time I post a video. Bye for now.